Hi guys. Firstly, I want to apologize for the lateness of this posting. It's been a bit of a rough first week back. Secondly, I just want to forewarn you that this show and share is going to be more of just a share. Your boy can hardly peel a banana without lighting it on fire, so you're all unfortunately going to have to deal with a recipe that I'll post when I get my hands on it. I'd like to have the house standing at the end of the video. So, that being said, let's go. I'm afraid I don't have a lot of culture in my family. I know I'm half Hispanic on my biological father's side, but he's not really a part of my life, so I don't know anything about that culture and what it entails. The rest of me is predominantly Dutch and German, with smatterings of just about everything else in Europe. With a name like Scheinman, who would have guessed? So the German part of me gives me the only real cultural tradition that I know: pork and sauerkraut on New Year's Eve. The pork is supposed to represent luck in the coming year, and the kraut is supposed to represent a healthy bit of money in the future. I promise to have the recipe and the details later in the week. So, the most interesting part of my family is not the culture or where we come from. Funnily enough, it's our history. From nuclear meltdowns to haunted items to me having 4 potential last names, it's been a ride for me and mine. I don't have time to go through it all, so I'll give you what my mother drunkenly calls the Kansas origin story. So, my grandfather, Frederick Scheinman, was a shift head at a nuclear power plant called 3 Mile Island, which is located in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania. That's near Harrisburg, for those of you who know Pennsylvanian geography. On March 28th of 1979, in reactor number 2, there were failures in a secondary system which led to a stuck-open pilot pilot-operated release valve, which released large amounts of nuclear coolant, which caused a partial meltdown. The meltdown resulted in a large release of radioactive gases and iodine into the environment. So my grandfather lost his job as a result of his negligence. And new protocols for the plants were implemented just a year later. So, for years, my grandfather, my nana, my mother, and my uncle moved around the country while my grandfather worked menial jobs to support them. Then, a recently developed power plant in Burlington, just outside of Burlington, called Wolf Creek, called up my grandfather and asked if he'd be interested in training recruits for them. So my grandfather accepted. He was just glad to be back in his field and moved the family here to Topeka. Of course, I didn't stay here. Move around the rest of the country. Why not all of Kansas? My nana got a job in a town called Iola, so my grandfather moved them to a little more centrally located town called Leroy, which is where my mother and uncle grew up and eventually graduated high school. My family hasn't really left the area, that general area, since then. I mean, I grew up in Burlington, graduated Burlington High School in 2015. Now, just a bit of a fun fact. Going to school there meant that I had to practice nuclear evacuation drills so that, just in case the story I just told you repeated itself in the future. So, I hope you enjoyed listening to that bit of family history. I'm sorry there wasn't any food to show you, but I hope to have that recipe in my hands and up for you later in the week. So, and as a side note, for the curious, I love telling stories about my family and the things that have happened to us. So if you want to know anything about the haunted items, my 4 last name conundrum, anything else you're curious about, just ask me. Thanks for watching.